Going over to the political part podcast, you have some cities that are changing the racial data of people who are under arrest. Now, this brought to us thanks to Libs of TikTok, in which she says, quote, all of our criminal statistics are skewed against white people. In this case, she has 4 instances of arrest that occurred over in New Jersey, and which you have, well, 4 African American men, 2 of which have dreadlocks. They all have beards though, because true men always has beards, obviously. But yeah, it shows their arrest, and the race every single time was white. And then in 3 of the 4 times, the ethnicity was unknown, and then one of them was Hispanic. Which, I mean, some of my friends joke about me not looking really Hispanic. I am 50%. The guy on the very right in this picture, he's a very large, muscular African American man, and they say he is Hispanic. Which, again, you don't always want to judge a book by the cover. However, he is not Hispanic. And I think that's one of the reasons this went so viral. It got about 150,000 views and 11,000 likes. And this is something that's been happening for years. I think it is a push. I think those in charge of the data, which one of my favorite quotes, one of the only useful things I learned in college was from Business Statistics, in which the professor said, always ask, what is your sample size? What is your sample? Every time you hear a statistic, you should always ask, well, who created the sample size? Where was it? What was it? Because again, people do this all over, left, right, center. People take the data, and with the right sample size, you can get whatever result you want. Even rephrasing a question can get whatever result you want when it comes to a poll. And in this case, well, specifically this is New Jersey, but a lot of people, culturally speaking, in the United States, you look at memes on the Facebook, the Instagram, and on X, many people are bringing up the age-old statistic that I think that's been viral on social media for a couple of years, in which they refer to 30% of the population committing about 50% of the crimes in the United States. Granted, that is an instance where they're saying, 13% of the U.S. population currently was African Americans. They're committing 50% of the crimes. Now, if you want to be more granular, it's usually, statistically speaking, African American men. So you could argue that 30% is even less. However, that is one of the most viral statistics that's been out there lately. One way you could change that statistic would be, well, changing the sample size and saying that these guys are white. Now, again, in terms of who's done the most crime in the United States, usually white folks. Now, it does change, obviously, dramatically when you bring in things like per capita. And this is one way you can skew that data. And I'm scrolling down, and it's interesting. They actually have very similar skewed data when it comes to a 4473, which in the United States is, think of it like a job application to purchase a firearm, where they say if you're Hispanic, you still say that you're white, which most Hispanic people I know would say, no, that is not, no. But again, that's one of the selections. Now, one of the first comments comes to us thanks to Matt Van Swol. He says, quote, whatever the white criminal rate is astronomically lower than you could have ever imagined. And let me pull up his statistic right here. In which he brings up 4 gentlemen, where in this case, they are Hispanic and Asian, and they are all marked white. Apologies, I can't see close enough in terms of where the sample size is from. But again, those are 4, and again, this is anecdotal. It's another 4 people that got 2.7 thousand likes. Those TikTok said, yep, gained 35 likes. Also, Supa says, quote, so ridiculous, just imagine what the criminal statistics really say, getting 64 likes. Sagittarius Eternia says, quote, the administration state actively falsifies the racial data to manufacture a narrative of white criminality. We see this with the mugshots where obviously non-white offenders are categorized as white to inflate the statistics against the native population. This is not a clerical error, it is a calculated misinformation warfare. The poison to the database to hide the reality of who is actually committing the violence. By blurring the lines, they protect their preferred demographics and demonize the very people they seek to protect. The data is a lie designed to disarm you, getting 50 likes, which, yeah. And again, when the government gets data they don't like, sometimes they just stop collecting it altogether. One of my favorite examples would be the CDC, which I don't think many people are a fan of. To their credit, historically, the CDC did keep track in which people would defend themselves with firearms. That, spoiler, is between 700,000 to several million per year, in which innocent people stopped a bad guy using a firearm. In some cases, just brandishing a weapon. Now, again, not legal advice. In many states, just brandishing a weapon, aka pointing a weapon at someone, is considered use of lethal force. Again, none of this is legal advice. I do a suit on, but in all seriousness, well, during the Biden-Harris administration, that was very much going viral. The Second Amendment was going viral. More and more people buying firearms. Thank God. You're got to get a right to defend yourself and your family. And the CDC started, and they said, we're no longer going to collect that data. because it was making the Second Amendment look really good because it showed people, hey, here is literally three-quarters of a million to several million times per year on average where good guys are stopping bad guys with guns. That is terrible for the anti-gunner narrative, where they want to tell you all guns are bad, especially black guns. Ooh. Spoiler alert, guns are awesome. Guns are your right, and they stop a lot of bad guys. Government didn't like that, and my theory is that they told the CDC to stop collecting that data because it was hurting the government's anti-gun agenda. Again, I don't have any evidence of that, just my theory of why they would stop collecting that data. Because the sample size was making them look really bad because they wanted to ban guns and confiscate guns. You also have the conservative alternative saying, quote, they're trying to make us out to be more than a threat than we actually are. The Nazis did the same thing to Jews in Germany. This is just what socialists do with their scapegoats. Jeez Louise. There you have the famous meme going around where they're changing, using AI to make the Franklin turtle character into funny books. This one says, Franklin learns about crime statistics, getting 50 likes. Also weird, and I would argue stupid. I would argue, I guess not unconstitutional, but one of my friends works in real estate, and we were talking about, the industry. I'd love to own a house one of these days, one of the goals I have in life. And they were telling me how, we're not legally allowed to tell them criminal statistics. So legally, real estate agents aren't allowed to tell you what the crime rate is locally. Now, thank God there are ways to, individually, you go on the internet, you can look that stuff, look up crime rates, sex offender maps, all that kind of stuff. But like a real estate agent isn't allowed to tell you crime statistics? That seems ridiculous. But it's illegal for them to do that. Capernius says, quote, this is not an isolated example either. They're doing this all over the place with many different crime types. This example is from the Tennessee Sex Offender Registry and the Texas Public Sex Offender Registry, in which, in this case, in all 4 instances, you do have African Americans who were classified as white. Although I guess they did get the ethnicity right. The ethnicity was labeled as non-Hispanic, so they got one part right. But obviously, those gentlemen are very much African American. That got 156 likes. A couple of these pictures. They got 156 likes. This is from Viral Dose Daily, and he has a crime chart where it shows the statistics in which, age versus race and when they're most deadly or violent in terms of murders per 100,000 statistics. And that's from a 2021 database, but is African American male between 15 and 24 years old is 207.4 per 100,000, which is the most dangerous. That got 31 likes. Ashley Y says, quote, same pattern always, and they have the famous photo compilation of the pieces of shit who were arrested between 72 and 17 times in which they murdered people and set a girl on fire. That got 83 likes, and the judges who keep letting these monsters out should be sent to prison. Sarah Smith says absolutely insanity. She has another picture compilation, 117 likes. Let's see. A lot more anecdotal data of all that. Hobb says, why did they label them incorrectly? Just put the correct race. Gained 8 likes. Well, again, it's because they want to change the narrative. Crazy Leg says, because then the data might show something inconvenient to their narrative. Well, I was going to say, case in point, get 19 likes. You also have MLC saying, falsifying police records is illegal. What's the punishment? Well, they're government employees, so I'm sure they'll get no punishment at all. At most, and again, this seems to be all over the U.S., I'm sure that at most they'll get paid leave, which it blows my mind that is considered a punishment for the private sector. We're going to pay you to do nothing. You mean a vacation? The public sector blows my mind. Let's see, I'm trying to see if there's any contrarian data, because again, life gets a little bit boring for the echo chamber. Dirk McGillen says, quote, mostly peaceful, violent, repeat offenders, gained 12 likes. A couple other folks talking about the statistics on the world population only being 8% white, talking about how they're on the verge of extinction and they're actually the minority. Echo Hopper says, but we're sure Jesus wasn't white, getting 7 likes. Going down more and more. Noskiko Ryan says, statistics are skewed to make whites seem more criminal and minorities less so, getting 26 likes. Rogilo, Texas Mexican Maldiano, long but interesting name, says, quote, so basically they're cooking the books. If you can slap white on anyone's file, you can pretend the numbers look better and keep pushing the same failed sanctuary policies. That's how you manipulate the statistics instead of fixing the crime, getting 8 likes. Aga's the Fix says the fact that this is still going on is a sign these institutions need to be firing people. Yep, getting 31 likes. Again, as we looked at those examples, it's not just leftist states or shitties, as I pejoratively call cities. Again, you had Tennessee there, you had Texas there. Really kind of shows you, well, who's in charge of these police departments, who's in charge of these policies, and why is anyone getting punished for this? I mean, they are falsifying police records. That's a crime. That's a big issue. Have you ever heard of a single person getting in trouble for that in the past 10 years? Ever? At any news network at all? It should be breaking news. It's not. No one's paying attention to it, really, except for a couple folks on the internet. But yeah, I think they're absolutely doing this to shift a narrative, and I don't think they're going to stop it anytime soon. Trump might try to do something on a federal level. But again, these are state crimes and state statistics. We'll see what kind of mechanism Trump could do to intervene. Let me know, do you think the average person realizes that these statistics are being skewed more and more, and they're being more and more falsified? Let me know your thoughts, because, as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, don't forget to take time to give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, and a comment, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.